Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's exciting to be joining this amazing initiative with Take Your Power Back Weekend, where your voice, your vote is an important initiative, and we are excited to be partnering with you on this initiative. I am Dr. Micah Griffin. I work for the City University of New York, Kingsborough Community College, and I also serve as a member at large with the American College Health Association, also as co-chair of our Historically Black College and University Coalition. And we are excited today to be joining you and to provide some important information. I'm joined by one of my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Padonda Webb. If you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, maybe the school you're from, and then we'll just dive right into this important conversation around voting rights, around encouraging young people, especially students of color, how they can let their voice be heard and really take their power back when it comes to voting.
I like that. Take your power back.
Take your power back.
That's right. That's right. I'm Padonda Webb. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Health at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. And I'm excited to be here with you this morning. I think that we are talking about some awesome things when it comes to voting. I'm excited about taking your power back. So having said that, Micah.
Yeah, definitely. But again, like you said, we are excited to be a part of this important initiative and to share just some of our insights. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely changed the way we basically do everything, from the way we interact to the way we engage and overall social interactions with each other. But one thing that we don't want it to impact is our right to vote. And that's what we want to talk about today is the importance of not just voting, but encouraging our young people, our college students, and especially our students of color to take their voices back and let their voices be heard when it comes to voting, especially this fall. So as we know, kind of COVID-19 has definitely created numerous challenges for our society, and we're constantly learning new things about it. I think every single day we're learning something new about the virus, how it impacts our bodies, and different ways of how this virus is essentially changing the way we live. So with everything that's changing, with all new information coming out, Dr. Webb, with your clinical background and just your work, your work that you do at A&T, can you kind of talk to us a little bit about maybe what you're seeing with COVID-19, maybe how it's impacting your campus, your students, and maybe some new things that we might have learned recently about COVID-19 that we didn't know before?
So let's start from a healthcare perspective. From a healthcare perspective, COVID-19, as we know, those with comorbidities, African Americans, Hispanics, people of color, and minorities is disproportionately affecting us. People with high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, individuals like that, we have to just make sure that we're especially careful. But we can't let those things keep us from voting. So we certainly have to make sure that we are going out to vote despite having these comorbidities. And we just have to make sure we do it safely. One of my greater concerns at this point, when it comes to COVID-19 voting and the way that it's kind of impacting our lives, is the social aspect as well. Like, as you probably know, at HBCU campuses, we are big on homecoming. We're big.
We love homecoming.
Yes, we do.
That's like a holiday, right?
It is. It is. GHO is canceled. And so for a lot of people, that is a big deal. Fall sports have been canceled, so those that had aspirations of going to the NFL, there are concerns there. A lot of campuses are offering online classes. So one of my bigger concerns is the fact that it is hampering the social skills of this particular, of the young people, where we are used to communicating, kind of face to face. We're having to Zoom, we're having to Skype, communicating through social media and things like that. But we have to just make sure that we stay focused, that we realize that we don't let the impact of COVID-19 just kind of overtake our health and overtake us from a social aspect as well.
No, I agree. And that's a great point. And I think that's probably what I'm concerned the most about this fall, especially with the perspective of students, especially at our HBCUs, like you said, with homecoming being basically a holiday. And as we're seeing all these different colleges that are, having classes come online, canceling homecoming, I'm wondering if that's going to deter students a little bit. If they're going to say, well, classes are online, homecoming is canceled, maybe I should just stay home and not risk going out to vote, or isn't even worth it. So I'm wondering, just as we're kind of talking about, African Americans and the importance of voting, or historically how we, have been disenfranchised and haven't always had the right to vote. How important do you think voting is right now for, this demographic, not just students, but African Americans in general, and especially women? I think if we talk about different groups, I'm wondering just the role that, voting is going to play and the importance of it this fall. And I guess that was a question, but more like a comment too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to voting, we have to just make sure that we keep in mind the people that have paved the way for us to be able to vote, particularly women. Women didn't always have the right to vote. This wasn't always a given for us. And if you're an African American woman, we all already know the struggles of African Americans when it came to getting the right to vote. So we have to just make sure that we keep those things in mind. A lot of organizations, their mission is kind of centered around making sure that you're voting and exercising your rights. So this is a great opportunity for us to take back our power and make sure that we, just don't get, despite COVID being a big issue right now, we just don't lose focus on what is truly important right now. And that's just making sure that we continue to exercise our rights to vote.
I agree 100%. I think that's why I was so excited. And I think that's why, I was so glad that the Andrew Goodman Foundation actually reached out to ACHA, because, a lot of times we don't see those parallels between, how public health is so directly correlated to economics, to social mobility, to just our overall life. And I think COVID-19 has definitely shown us that you can't separate, the public health outcomes from economic outcomes. They're tied directly together. And I think voting, or our right to vote, or the outcomes that we're expecting when we do go to the ballot, are directly tied to all of that. And I think this has been just a year where there's been so many things happening, from this COVID-19 outbreak to the Black Lives Matter protests. There's just been a lot of things going on, and even the census this year. A lot of times, I think, with everything overshadowing and all the things being pushed on us on a daily basis, we forgot that the census was this year, and the census, voting. And I think all of this is tied directly together, especially with young people, on college campuses. They don't realize, I think, the power that they have when it comes to going to the ballot. And like we said, taking your power back.
Right. So, I think about some of the social justice issues when I think about voting, and when you think about whoever the candidate is that you decide that you want to choose. I think that we have to really think about the things that are going on in the world right now, and just making sure that we remember those things stay at the forefront of your mind when you're selecting your local and even your national candidates. So
No, you good. No, you good. That was on point. And I think that's why, I think that's what's so important about having different voices present, about having different backgrounds, people from different industries. And I love the fact, like I said, that this foundation, reached out to ACHA, because we aren't in silos. Like, just because we work in college health doesn't mean that we don't understand the impacts or how that correlates to having students go out, because that's essentially what we're talking about. One of the biggest ways to prevent the spread of COVID-19, as we're learning, is social distancing. It's staying at home. We all heard it, flatten the curve, stay at home, wear a mask. But this fall, in November, when it comes to our national elections,
absolutely,
if states don't move forward with mail-in voting, which most of them probably won't, we're probably going to have to go out in large numbers and stand in long lines and vote, and be in large groups. So I think those are going to be challenges. But what I would do is I would encourage our students, especially our HBCU students, to not be deterred by that. Don't let the fear or the anxiety or the worry of catching COVID-19, even though it is a real virus and you can catch it, don't let that be the deterrent that prevents you from going out and exercising your right to vote. You can definitely reduce your chances significantly of catching the virus and also transmitting the virus by following those simple steps. And Dr. Webb is the clinician. I'm not going to dive too much into that epidemiological aspect of it, but as we all know, wearing a mask definitely won't 100% prevent you from getting the virus, but it can significantly reduce your chances, especially if you're going out in groups, which when you go out to vote, you probably will, especially when you're keeping distance. We all probably have seen now when we go out in stores, or when we go to the grocery store or to the bank or anywhere we go, stores are now creating spaces to show you where 6 feet is. And I'm assuming and I'm hoping that when we do have voting this fall, that those precincts will practice some of those same measures, where they'll have some of those things in place, where they have the 6 feet marked off, they let a certain number of people come in. So I just want to encourage our students to not be dismayed or worried about that their health is a concern, because I think our knowledge is changing towards COVID-19. Our realization that this is a disease that can impact everybody, even though every state has done something different. I think we're all starting to kind of understand, even though it might be a little bit too late. We're all starting to understand the importance of, practice some of these measures. I guess another question I have is just a statement, maybe your thoughts on some of those measures that I talked about, like the social distancing, the mask wearing. Even though we know these aren't 100% mechanisms or ways of preventing the spread of the virus, do you feel like these are sufficient enough to make students feel like it's safe for them to go out? Or what should students worry about, or should they not worry? Or maybe just what are your thoughts with encouraging students or having them go out to vote this fall, even though COVID-19 might still be very prevalent?
Yeah. So I certainly feel if you social distance, if you are practicing good hand washing techniques, have a little sanitizer in your bag, wearing a face covering, that is adequate. That's adequate to protect you against COVID. And I think that there is one thing that we probably should highlight when it comes to the college population, is that they tend to be asymptomatic carriers, right? And so just because your friend doesn't look sick, is not coughing or sneezing, we still have to be aware that, that person could be infected with COVID. And so we can't relax around people just because they don't appear to be ill, or this is somebody I've been, hanging with. It's my roommate. Your roommate potentially goes out and meets other people and can bring that back. So we just can't get comfortable. But at the same time, we absolutely have to go out and vote, despite having all of these things as concerns. And I want to encourage some of the student groups, some of the organizations on campus, sororities, fraternities, whatever the organization is on campus, to make this an initiative, make this a goal for your organization, to push this out on social media.
That's a great idea.
Whatever it is, the platform that it is that you need to use, so that we can make sure that we encourage as many people as possible to come out and make sure that they're exercising their right to vote. It is important.
Yes. No, that's a great point. And maybe we can spend a few minutes just talking about organizing and, encouraging people to vote. Like you said, you hit on a great point. Our HBCUs are known for a lot of things. Homecoming is a big one, the whole history, the academic, prestige, the leaders we produce. But we also known for our fraternities and sororities, the Divine Nine, started at HBCUs, most of them. Our student organizations are very active, to our SGAs on different campuses. And one thing I noticed when we all went virtual and, everything, transferred to, working remotely or from home, I saw a lot of student organizations get very active on social media across not just HBCU campuses, but colleges in general.
Right.
Our students are like experts when it comes to using social media. I mean, they find new things every day. I mean, I know some students that have 20, 30,000 followers. I'm saying, like, how do you get that many? How is that possible? Like, so these students, like, how do you know that many people? But they are very active on social media. And I think you brought up a great point, how it's important to organize. Normally, if this was normal times, we probably would have student organizations that were preparing, voting registration drives in person. We'll be going to doors, knocking. We'll be doing different drives on campus. But because we might not have the ability to do that in the fall, I think it's going to be very important that students use those social media accounts that they have, whether it's their personal ones, whether it's the school social media accounts, whether it's their student organizations, to basically have those conversations about voting. I mean, they can create hashtags. I know that the Andrew Goodman Foundation and this initiative to take your voice back, they have several hashtags that they're using. So I would encourage our students that are viewing this presentation right now, or are involved in this weekend, to use those hashtags and share information, share information about voting, encourage your friends to vote, but just use your voice across social media, because that can be a very powerful tool if it's used the right way. Instead of just sharing those videos of stuff that don't even matter about rappers and athletes and all the stuff they doing, like, let's use our social media to have these conversations that's going to impact not just our lives right now, but in our national election, essentially the next 4 years of our life. And we see how quickly things can change in a short matter of time based off our leadership. And one more thing is, when it comes to voting, like, we're not just voting for what's happening in our communities. Like, we're voting for leadership on a federal, national level. We're talking about what's going to be the impact of post COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we saw, this virus not just impacted our public health infrastructure, it changed everything as we know about economics, about how we move around the country. So many people are unemployed. So it's important that the leadership in this country over the next 4 years is focused on how do we recover from that, and how, that's going to impact our college students in general, because most colleges are closed this fall.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of students that are, concerned about going away to different states to college, whether they're going to sit a year out. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. And I think one thing that you can do to exercise your right, or, influence, something, even though you might not have control over everything, but definitely trying to influence something, is voting, because that's essentially going to determine the next 4 years of your life. And if you're an incoming freshman,
Mm-hmm.
that's essentially all 4 years you're going to be in college.
Yeah.
Well, most majors, some majors tend to take a whole long time, but essentially most college students, those next 4 years of this next presidential election are going to be those next 4 years that you're going to be in college. So it's important that you take advantage of this time. And like we keep saying, take your power back and exercise your right to vote.
And we have to make sure that we remain united. We come together, we pull, the Deltas and the AKAs and the Omegas and, whoever else, we pull these people together.
Oh, you just naming those three? You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful.
The divine nine.
There you go.
But we certainly have to just kind of pull together. We all have similar missions. So, pull together, make sure that this is one of the missions of the overall organizations. And I think that we have potential to have a strong voice. So I think that this is an opportunity, it's an opportunity for us to come together, for us to unite and bond with one another, meanwhile impacting the greater community. So I think
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100%. Well, I think we basically covered everything. I mean, we could probably talk, forever about, just staying safe and the importance of voting. But essentially what we wanted to do today was to just share, our insights as healthcare professionals and, as people of color, and especially as individuals that, work at HBCUs and are passionate about the power that HBCU students have. But we just want to thank you for, tuning in today. And we just want to, again, encourage you to take your power back, because your voice, your vote, your voice is just as important as everything else that's going on. And it's important, as Dr. Webb and I, keep trying to reiterate, that you have to really exercise your right and ensure that you do it in a safe and well manner, and ensure that you're taking care of not just yourself, but your friends, your roommates, your people in your community, and everybody. So those would be my key takeaway points. Dr. Webb, before we kind of sign off, was there anything else you wanted to add, or anything else you wanted to share about our conversation today?
Just remembering that if you don't exercise your right to vote, then your voice cannot be heard. So it is very important that you go out and exercise your right to vote. At this point, if you don't vote, you can't complain. So make sure that you get on out there and exercise your right. Take your power back.
Definitely. Well, thank you all again for tuning in, and we hope we were able to share some valuable insights with you. And we just thank the Andrew Goodman Foundation and this important initiative for partnering with myself, Dr. Micah Griffin, and Dr. Padonda Webb from North Carolina A&T, City University of New York, and we also represent the American College Health Association. So thank you all for tuning in, and we wish you all the best and continue to stay well.
Thank you.